Right, so what this talk is going to be about, I'm going to cover three papers, one from 2006, one from, and two from 2023, like in direct opposition to the other. And this, like, what it's generally about. There's a number of so-called scientifically proven therapies out there, and acceptance and commitment therapy is one of them. And what I'd like to do today is first walk through kind of an article by some major authors in the field, kind of establishing the program of what they're going to do almost 20 years ago, and then look at what they did and like how the critics perceive what they did and how they respond to the critics. Incidentally, it's going to spawn into a little bit of discussion on the philosophy of science, even because their disagreements with the critics run that deep. So the first thing I'd like to do is kind of give some background on a particular school of therapy, which is behavior therapy. And I'm sure you're familiar with cognitive behavior therapy, but what you might not be familiar with is that it's the second wave of the theory as of now. And like how the field evolved. So first you had Pavlov and his dogs, right? And he figured out conditioning and like established behavioral sciences. And this got adopted to humans in the form of behavior therapy, which thought in terms of conditioning and was and was directly linked to the biological models, neurological models developed at the time, this model you probably talked about in biology class in school, like when you touch something hot, like sinus activation, and you get an automatic response. That's the term they thought of, and that's the time when they developed therapy by exposure. So like when you get gradually exposed to something which elicits a strong reaction, you're supposed to relearn that reaction. Does that make sense? Okay. At some point, they ran into the limits of the theory because apparently humans are more complicated than dogs, and that's when they went into cognitive school. I say cognitive BT, and then that's when they started to model how thoughts work. Oh, I'm sorry, I got to disable the screensaver. Give me a sec. All right. So that's when we started to model how thoughts work, and so they basically you can think of it in computer science terms of behavior therapy as something completely stateless. So like you have like kind of an agent which has learned reflexes. And that's the only state it holds. And when it gets a stimulus, it executes a reflex and moves on. Cognitive behavior therapy posits some sort of state and like thought processes, and like what it does, what you may commonly see it do, they would suggest noticing the thoughts connected to a particular subject, and like if you notice that sorry about that. If you notice your thoughts like gradually going into an unpleasant space, you can for instance switch your attention elsewhere. So like you notice that your thoughts are going into some sort of lull, and you can kind of notice the trend and interrupt yourself, and I don't know, go out and walk. That's the sort of intervention that cognitive behavior therapy is about. And so that's like first wave, second wave, and third wave is contextualistic stuff, and really it's normally called third wave of behavior therapy, and it's a little complicated. So let me get my helping materials.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Before we get into the weeds, kind of this diagram, explains the three waves of these behavioral therapies, behaviorism.
Yeah.
All right, but it kind of completely forgoes, Freud stuff and what came after him, because he kind of jumped off Pavlovian stuff. He did a PhD in basically what the name now of the science that studies exactly neurons and neural pathways.
Yeah, neuroscience.
Well, that particular branch of neuroscience. Okay, so but then kind of forgot or jumped over all the behavior stuff and directly in the weeds of psychology, psyche, and conjectured this conscious.
What is the question?
So like how that fits into the picture. That part of
right.
history.
Great comment. I am like intentionally forgoing the other parts of modern song in 20th century at the time, but like for a glimpse, I'm not going to go in there, but
I think that if we draw more lines, then there would be some influence from these.
Yes, that's what I'm going to
these
do right now.
branches on the later.
So, like,
stages.
notice that behaviorists started out as empiricists. Like, they had very concrete biological models, and eventually they drifted off into more theoretic sort of stuff, which isn't directly grounded. And I'm going to show some fun quotes about that later on. And you might be familiar that some other people like Freud and Jung most prominently did other stuff, like positing ideas about people having anal, oral, genital stages of development, people having certain psychotypes, and basically the sort of things they did, as far as I can tell, they mostly pulled stuff out of their head. If you want to be nice about it, they distilled the expert opinion. So like not really empirical. It's more the sort of thing like I'm Freud. I'm a working therapist, and I practiced therapy for 10,000 hours, and I have some models which help me do therapy, and that's what their models are. So like they are not they are not grounded down to atoms, but they help in their practice. So like clinical models, you'd say.
I think there is a distinction between empirical and like experimental, because like these guys, yes, practicing psychotherapists, psychologists are again grounded in experience, in some empirical evidence, what works, what not, though they don't usually conduct kind of rigorous experiments.
Yes. So, like, one way you can think about it is that early behavioristic models, the reductionistic ones, as in they reduced behavior to very simple physical models, and these were easy to study. So, like, they got a bunch of studies there. While the other guys indeed wanted to have stuff which was useful for their practice, and like you really do quickly run into limits of what you can do in therapy when you think about your patient as a dog. And like therefore, due to that, there's been some convergence here. And like the third wave is, as compared to first wave, really woo-woo. Right. So, having got that, I'd like to, that's what essentially we covered. So, you can see that the authors talk about common sense procedures generated clinically. So, like that's exactly what the doctors or therapists come up with when they practice. And perhaps an issue with that is that what they do when they practice and when they come up with those clinical interventions, they develop some theory about how that works, and this theory might be instructive, as in it helps teach new therapists. It helps build intuitions, but see this green quote out here, like, no benefit to providing cognitive interventions in cognitive therapy. Response to cognitive therapy occurs before cognitive practices are introduced. So, the methodological issue here is that they have something that works, and they think they have a model of how it works, but maybe it's not that. And that's essentially the subject that we are going to grapple with today.
Wait, may I kind of understand it? Well, let me understand what's going on in this agreed quote. So they assume there are like two kinds of interventions, probably kind of more behavior ones and more cognitive ones. Mm-hmm. And they say that, okay, when we do behavioral ones, cognitive ones give no additional benefit.
I'd interpret it a little more generally than that. I'd say that you have one group of patients, you have another group of patients, and with one group you conduct cognitive therapy, and with another you conduct some therapy. And you expect cognitive therapy to work somehow better.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I don't quite get what's the point of comparison. This kind of default therapy. What's that if it's not cognitive? Or it's assumed it's something not cognitive.
Yes. I mean, I asked about an example of a non-cognitive therapy.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, one example of a non-cognitive therapy is I forget the word, but it's those tapes which you sit down and you play a tape, and the tape goes close your eyes, you relax, you feel hot oil pouring on you slowly. It is warm, it's nice, you feel your body relax. Like a guided meditation, for instance. And that's the sort of non-cognitive intervention you can do. Yeah.
All right, then what's considered cognitive? interventions.
Yeah, great question. I think I'd rather like not go too far into the definitions, but the basic idea is that
Give an example.
cognitive is something which is of thoughts. Like
What?
like so
Well, I have an impression they're talking about some reflective thoughts. Like when you're thinking about your thinking. Because when you're doing guided meditations, supposedly you're thinking because you're imagining, okay, this shit pouring on your head, warm, fuzzy feeling, and stuff like that.
right.
No, I'm not against.
Okay.
I was doing kind of sort of guided or not guided meditations, and I consider this not working, so I might be mocking, but I'm
Right.
totally all for this. Apart from stupid shit pouring on your head.
Okay. Yes. When I say thoughts, I mean like symbolic thoughts, as in not
Okay.
feelings, not a sense of being in a place, not anger, not like pain somewhere, but rather like I want to drink some Coke, which is not like an image of me taking Coke, not a feeling of Coke in my mouth, but rather words as written out, I want to drink Coke. Okay. And like oh yeah, I wanted to also talk about what ACT does, what the third wave does, and this is guiding us to that. So like cognitive therapy, as the authors say, was about like direct changes to thoughts, and what I mean there is like if you notice that you think I want to punch that guy in the face, then close your, then like breathe 3 times slowly and walk out the room.
And punch him. Yes.
Yes, walk out with him and then punch him. Right. And that's like a direct change strategy, what they call. And a didactic change strategy would be like a therapist guides your attention to some thought pattern, and you notice and you learn to notice this pattern and kind of discount it. So like that's what the didactic thing is. And contextual and experiential change is kind of about it's about reframing something you might have heard about. So like say one thing you might have heard about, like a public speaking advice. When you're speaking in public, imagine that the audience is naked. So like you kind of
That's not reframing.
well, yes, reframing would be like when say when you want to talk with a loved one and you're scared of that because like you're scared they will leave you because they're unhappy with you. You can like reframe this notion of antagonism present in the situation, like it's you against them. You can try to revisit the situation in terms of you both being there against some stressors in your relationship. And like stressors are first off, they don't have feelings, like they're physical world things. Second off, they are like external, and so you can kind of build an alliance against them. And that's reframing. So like you view the situation in one way, and now you view it in another way, and that's helpful to you. And like this was a pretty like
And experimental, it's when you changing something into your mood or something, drinking, something eating, for example, or no?
Right. Experiential is when you um, so.
So, for example, drink little bit and you will relax. Something like that.
Mhm.
No?
So I think there's two ways to view that, and um, what you're talking about is mostly called kind of like environment change,
Yeah.
and it's not really a woo enough thing for what we're going to here. So like environment change is well, it's something commonly used in CBT, so it's not necessarily third wave, but it works. Yes, absolutely. Um, what a third wave experiential thing could be is is exactly what I was going with hot oil pouring over. Like it's something when you can imagine yourself in some situation. Like you can go back to the past, or you can imagine some future, or you can imagine something nice happening, and this is actually like pretty well empirically supported. I think that when you imagine things, they are interpreted neurologically in much the same way as actual experiences, as in like actual sensory inputs. Yeah, so that's what experiential techniques are. Okay, and yeah, so like what we just talked about was pretty clear-cut stuff. And now I'd like to build on some of the theorizing act theoreticians did. And an important feature of ACT was that they I need a little bit of whiteboard here. So like this was scientifically grounded in Pavlov, and they were fine. This was kind of like they were getting dissatisfied with scientific grounding, and this was they were like, oh man, we got to develop our own scientific ground now, because what was before doesn't work for us. And this ground they built is called the relational frames theory. And where's my flashing mouse? Yeah. And
Well, on this note of developing their own thing, I think the context is that there is no definite theory of mind, right? So kind of different kinds of scientists and different branches of cognitive sciences still developing new theories that kind of try to build this model or uncover how the brain works, how the psyche works. So we still don't have definitive answers. So kind of developing new models that can account for new experiments and research and things is kind of meaningful thing.
yes,
Or necessary thing.
yes,
No,
yes,
that's
yes.
not bad.
Yeah, I didn't mean to imply that. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I think the primary contribution of this thing they developed was the notion that people can do inference. And what I mean to say here is that basic behavioral stuff is about kind of order one learning, as in like you ring a bell, the dog salivates, and that's like A implies B, and you can also learn B implies C, but classic behaviorism isn't about following through on that implication. And RFT is about following through on that implication. So it's about that humans can figure this thing here out, and it generalizes this notion by saying that humans have like a lot of contexts in which they can derive those relations. Like they can you can learn you can reason temporally, like A happens before B and so on. You can reason about like social status, for instance, or you can reason about how things are beautiful, or I don't know, like you can reason about a bunch of kind of domains, and yeah,
So, again, what does RFT stands for?
relational frame theory.
Okay.
Okay, and they kind of spell out that you have like these operators you can use, and like I don't really have a point here. These operators just something which is curious, I think. So like you can say that things are similar or opposite, or they are less big or smaller, or this kind of this is a little weird, but it's this is about what you can think about the situation from your perspective and from the other person's perspective. Yeah, and they're probably covered. And yeah, a pretty much clear-cut example. So like, if A is dangerous and B is like A, then B is dangerous as well. And like that thing here was developed in concert with ACT. And the critics' worry is that it's less connected with ACT than might have been expected in the same way as this green quote above. Okay, so now I'd like to talk a little about how ACT works. So like the name of the game is second order change strategies, such as mindfulness, acceptance, and cognitive diffusion. So why is that second order? Because with CBT you would directly notice the bad thought patterns and try to fix them directly. And with mindfulness you learn like general skills like mindfulness, acceptance, and you figure out the object level on your own. And their agenda is to like develop empirical testing of that. And an interesting part of their agenda is that they want to so like theories or like framework building is about cleaving reality at the joints in some way, like because you can't take in the whole complexity of all the atoms, you want to build some abstractions. And an interesting stance they take is that they want their scientific theory to be built on pragmaticism. So like not some I don't know, not like look at brain regions like how they are physically out there and build from there, but they want rather to go from practice and like go top down. Right. And I think here we have yeah. And an interesting objection they bring against classical CBT is that like they don't quote directly where it comes from. It comes from a review article. They say that when you directly challenge those problematic thought patterns, you kind of, I think the notion goes that like a thought pattern is some neuronal activation thing, and when you try to directly challenge it, you're essentially giving it more attention, and when you give it more attention, you give it like more blood because like it needs more processing there and more activation there and more power there. And like if you do that, you can it can so happen that it only grows. And that's why sometimes you want not to like challenge the thought pattern, but rather diffuse it by mindfulness and acceptance.
I don't know what their perspective, but another perspective could be kind of concerns about what is moral status of these kind of interventions. They don't discuss that. I mean, when you challenge some particular things,
Mhm.
person thinks this thing, you kind of start arguing with that. You kind of doing this judgment call whether this good or bad, or
Mhm.
you're
Mhm.
kind of telling the other person that this is bad,
Uh,
and like, what's your moral status to say other people what's good, what's bad?
yeah, that's a great point. They actually do argue that like this traditional CBT, a therapist often kind of tells you that this thought bad, like punish it, get it out, and when a little of a hyperbole here, and when a therapist isn't really like telling you to do anything, when he just guides you to a different place, like of acceptance and loving all yourselves, and like yes.
Could you please repeat the last idea of comparison the blood flowing and vice versa?
Yes, so that was a bit hand wavy, sorry about that. Like, so
It's not necessarily about blood. Anyway,
Like fight or run. Does it work this way?
no, not exactly.
So for example, as I understand, somebody will say you, don't think about this or don't forget about this, and instead of forgetting about this, you starting to think about this.
Okay.
So instead, you can say to a person, for example, let's go in another direction, for example, in another place, and in this way, you just forgot about this thought by yourself.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I understand how this works, but physically it is interesting how you change different approaches to fight these thoughts and ideas.
yeah, so like I'm not sure if they in this particular paper they referring to argue about it neurologically, but the general notion is that if you direct attention to something, then it normally like gets a higher priority, and that works in terms of resources as well. As in, like if you need to do more processing there, then you need more blood there, and the neighboring neurons tend to get co-opted to this like subnetwork as well, and so this subnetwork grows.
And if you accept this, so you became mindful, you don't have to process this area of your brain, and what happens?
Yeah, so
on a high level, I'd say that okay, we consider this situation. Yeah, the person has particular, say, thought pattern. Yeah, okay, maybe it's kind of maniacal thing. So they constantly get sucked into thinking like, I'm nothing, I'm nothing, I'm nothing, and they start thinking this, and they never stop thinking that, and can't think about anything else. So this kind of gradually destroy their life, right? Because they can't achieve anything useful, like eating. So what we want is them basically to drop this thing. Yeah, just stop doing that for any reasons. There could be like two major reasons. They can reconsider and they just don't care about this thought anymore and it fades away. Or like if they suddenly forget about it completely, that they ever had this thought that there is such thought could be present on the planet in anyone's head. That's another option. Like so either way we want this this thought which we think is represented by a particular neural circuit in the brain, kind of gets destroyed. Just well, while you forget something, yeah, these circuits gets destroyed in the brain. At least in theory goes, and there are there are lots of destruction in the brain and lots of buildings, so everything all the time gets built and destroyed. So kind of again, there is a basic Hebbian learning rule that neurons that fire together bind together, neurons that fire kind of out of sync fail to link. So when you think about something, you can activate particular neurons, especially when you activate them together with other neurons, they start binding kind of physical bonds, these synapses and stuff like that. So that's kind of bad thing in this context. Yeah, first you thought I am nothing like out of blue. Now you start thinking that when you see your therapist, that's like okay, not the intended outcome.
All right, so maybe another way to contrast a CBT approach and an ACT approach here would be to say that CBT would, one CBT approach would be to argue with the thought. Like, you think I am nothing, the therapist asks you why. And like you kind of branch out and kind of do logical discussion over there. And hopefully at some point you kind of argue yourself into like, okay, apparently I have no reasons to think that, then great, I go on about my life.
So this is psychology. So this is afraid.
This is a CBT technique.
So psychoanalysis. This is when you analyze your thoughts. And in CBT, it's just
not exactly. I don't think. Again, psychoanalysis is a huge thing which has been developing over like 100 years. So there are a lot of stuff there.
But basically, if you go on the vibes, no, psychoanalysis is like that. CBT is like that. That just confusing naming. Okay.
Well, this stuff goes back to at least
Aristotle.
NLP. And probably, most likely, the guys stole it from somewhere because they stole almost everything. They openly admit.
And like this was an analogy for what CBT would do, and what like one way to say what ACT would do. You would just like think about nice oil pouring of yourself. Like, do you even remember what you were thinking about?
This is ACT.
Yes, there was one ACT technique.
Okay.
And we are going to cover other ACT techniques shortly.
Okay.
And like so the hypothesis that ACT people go forward with is that psychological inflexibility comes from weak ability to reframe things. And what they mean, like one very prominent kind of thing in what's the word, in like when people are unhappy about something, is taking thoughts literally, as in thinking like I'm nothing, and taking that not as a bunch of words, but as like a state of the world, which it isn't, because it's like it's a bunch of words. At best, it's
you're made of atoms, so you're not nothing.
Yes, exactly. And like so, at best, it's a point to some statement. And the problem occurs when you take it as a literal statement, and as such, just demonstrated, like you can view each situation in 100 of ways. Like you are a bunch of atoms, you are nothing. Like you're a person sitting in a room, and one of the ideas they have is that like trouble comes when you aren't very good with viewing situations in a bunch of ways.
On the other hand, when you think about atoms, and that it's 99.9% exactly nothing. Apparently, we are mostly nothing.
Right. Okay, yeah. So we are almost up to the core process of ACT.
6 core.
Process of ACT. Almost up to there. Just like one more concept and then process. So one pretty core concept of ACT is this is what they call cognitive fusion, and that is when you are very much like married to your thoughts and can't observe them from the third person, kind of, or like can't criticize them maybe. So it's like I don't know, say you think I'm hungry, and you like one person can like really like feel it in their body, like I don't know, they get a stomach ache, they feel a little nauseous, they kind of get their field of vision contracts, their like their emotions also like kind of get into a particular, so it's like a whole state of being hungry, and that's what they call fusion with the thought, so becoming one with the thought, and the opposite of that would be diffusion, when you like when you can act as an observer. And that's one concept. And a fun idea they introduce is that they stipulate that our society kind of makes that worse by so like there's two ways this can go, right? On one hand, you can have thoughts which bring around feeling. So like you first you think I'm nothing, and then you feel bad. And on the other hand, you can feel like some pang of hunger, and then think I'm hungry, and then think like I'm a bad person because I can't cook for myself, and like the cycle is a problem. And they say that the society makes this cycle worse because the society draws the person into attempts to understand themselves, even when this is unnecessary and unhelpful.
Attempts to understand and explain psychological events, even.
On that point, and kind of.
So what does it mean? So it is meaning that noticing this pattern, this kind of cycle pattern, it's sometimes bad for a person in this cycle.
I'd say that what it says is that this is sometimes bad. So like I think what they imply is that sometimes when you feel something, you ought to just feel it. Be present, be in the moment. Don't overthink, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you try to over-conceptualize it, that kind of drowns you deeper in that by the mechanism we discussed today.
Yeah, on that point. So, can you say that this psychological inflexibility and the psychological flexibility basically refers to reflective thinking, reflection in the mind? When we think about what we think and kind of decide something about what we think.
Well, I'd say not necessarily, because so like what the idea is that feelings are generally pretty flexible. Like they come and go, as in I don't know, I might be feeling like I know somewhat sad, and then I don't know someone smiles at me, and I'm like, and so that's flexible, but thought is kind of by design building things which like building theories, building like some thought castles which are analytical and therefore slow to process, like symbolic and slow to process. And so this is like by necessity more rigid than feelings. And to get back to your question, certainly thoughts about self are maybe most notorious in that because like we are such a large part of our lives, but it can very well be the case that I build an elaborate person of how the other person is an asshole, and like every time like I see something which I don't like about them, I go over this whole like tree of how yeah.
Anyway, well, if we associate this flexibility with kind of elaborate thinking processes, then we should see some kind of correlation between like education level and level of mental issues.
Yeah, have you seen the graph of like mental problems over the last 50 years?
I think I can't solve that. That's I guess what I'm asking for. Does their model
So
corroborate
it's
with the
exponential growth, no?
Yeah. Come on.
Then we probably have to adjust control for
Hey,
as they say.
picture.
You know the diseases
Very
and not diagnosis.
All the time.
Ah, okay.
Um, well, yeah.
Well, one thing I was wondering is this comparison against education level, at least controlling for those to define.
Yeah, I mean, great question. I think that yes, but I'm not sure, and I don't have a source at hand.
I mean,
But
that's
yeah,
kind of
yes,
part
I-
of this empirical validation of
Mhm.
their claims or their theory. I
Yes,
guess.
yes. It's a great point.
Then let me go back to this quote. I do not understand it fully. Why it's bad to try understanding like psychological events. I mean, in like your example, I'm not sure it was specifically about psychological events. I feel bad. Then now I have to understand why I feel bad, and like I imagine a lot of things which are not true. But I think it's still important to understand why I feel bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so absolutely, this this isn't medical advice. Like, never try to understand why I feel bad, because this is subject to the law of equal and opposite advice. As in, some people overthink, some people underthink. But their notion is that many people overthink, and the culture is teaching people to overthink, and maybe we should kind of balance that by teaching people, like people, especially educated people, are very, very good at building models. But what might be missing in our education is teaching them to kind of
Not thinking. So it's
well, not kind
like
of
a religion.
symbolic analysis, not
like a
thinking, but just
religion. Don't think about anything.
Yeah.
So there are a bunch of funny reels in Instagram about Indian guys. About Indian guys who say, "Don't give a fuck."
Yeah.
everything will, for example,
Yeah, they will pass. Yeah.
well,
Mhm. Okay, so now we're up to the 6 core processes of acceptance and commitment therapy. And like this is all about increasing this like flexibility and ability to view a situation in different ways. So first one is acceptance, and acceptance is defined pretty much as not avoidance. And what this is about is like I don't know. Imagine that when I don't want to go home because nobody is there and I'll feel alone and by myself and like unworthy and bad. And so I stay out at work for long hours and I know party hard in the clubs when I don't really give a fuck about clubs. And so that's avoidance of some negative thing. And what ACT tells you to do is just do it. It's about teaching people to cope with feeling bad, to kind of go through this feeling and see what's on the other side, I guess.
Get comfortable, be uncomfortable.
Nice quote, but I'm not sure it's what they mean. I think they mean rather like.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not what it means.
Yeah.
But I like it anyway.
Uh-huh. And like another.
Yeah. So basically, this Frank Herbert in June kind of condensed this acceptance process. Don't you remember the mantra? This litania against fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you can even look this up. It's nice. Yeah. I must not fear. Fear is a mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Yeah, that pretty much condenses it. The next point is...
So this is the most important point, as I understand, in this conceptual behavior therapy. Yes.
Well, there are,
it's just yellow and another no.
Right. there are. I think it's the most interesting one to talk about. It's the next one actually, cognitive diffusion. But they say there are 6 core processes, and we just covered one of them, acceptance.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the question was why they put this acceptance into the acronym ACT, acceptance, commitment. So, is this the most important? Probably not. They just decided that acronym is all 6 processes would be.
I asked it why this is market.
Yeah, but let's see how. Just I want to talk about it.
Okay.
But also about why A in ACT, I'd say because you can argue that other things are entailed from A, as in like cognitive diffusion can be thought about as a mechanism to cope, to be able to go through the fear. It's about not merging with your thoughts. It's about a skill of being able to see them as they are. And the interesting part here is some techniques they have here, like literally say techniques developed for clinical use. you can take your thought and say it a few times, and like if you say a word a few times, it loses its meaning. It's like a known experiment, right? Does that make sense? Like if you say water, 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 at some point it's just whoa, 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 whoa.
It's just surprising.
Well, yeah, like it's like a behavioral result actually, and they suggest doing the same thing with a thought, and again, like at some point it will just lose all sense. It's just like sine waves, or you can kind of externalize it as an object, like maybe it's a brick that's flying. It's like it's somewhere. Maybe it's like an airplane, certain something. Or you can make a meta thought that like I'm having that thought and direct to that, or you can kind of redirect to feelings that come, or bodily feelings that come, or memories that come. So like a bunch of stuff to kind of unglue yourself from the thought in the first place. Right. And the next thing is it is kind of more woo-ish, maybe. So it's about even further detachment, maybe, and kind of maybe being less reactive than people normally are. So like, I don't know, for instance, like my grandmother is a hypochondriac, which means that she is very sensitive to things in her body, and when she feels like the littlest stab of pain, she's like, "Oh my fucking god! Like I must have broken something. Oh, it's cancer. It's like this thing from 3 years ago is finally coming back. Oh shit! Like gotta make a visit to the doctor. What are they gonna diagnose me with? What are they gonna diagnose me with? They probably just will tell me that it's nothing, just to kind of make me feel better. But I know, like so this kind of rumination, and like what it started out with was that she felt something and she reacted strongly to that. And what they propose here is kind of a little bit, pushing the reaction back, like maybe react on that if you feel that a second time, and just I don't know, like if you feel it the first time, maybe just feel it, just be present. Right. The next thing is maybe also a little confusing, but here's how I think about it. We talked about how situations can be seen in various ways depending on one's viewpoint. And I think what they are saying in this paragraph is that like you are the viewpoint, as in your perception of the world is routed through the prism of your like experiences and understanding, and like I don't know, if everyone hates you, it might be the case that you live in a shitty place or work with shitty people, or like it might be the case that your the lens you use to view the situation is kind of distorted for some reason, and that's why it absolutely, like without doubt from the inside, when you look through that lens, looks to you that way. So like it's in a sense again a form of detachment. It's kind of so if we look at what's going on as you have some device of observation, and here's you looking out of that device. Yeah, maybe not the best of my drawings here. And what they say is that the picture is like this and not like this, right? That you are viewing the situation through something, and this something might be flawed, and they being nice about it in the way that they don't tell you that you are flawed. It's the device that is flawed.
Like a prism is corrupted or something.
Yes.
And how to deal with it?
Let me come back to a question after we cover those two next paragraphs because I think they're relevant. Yes.
Yeah. Tell me if I getting this right. Well, they contrast the self as a context with like self as the center of the universe. Usually we perceive like everything as a universe around us. So everything that happens is about us is because I'm like this. So if like every coworker thinks that I'm an asshole, that's exactly because I am an asshole. So then because they obviously thinking about me and that's all about me. That's like this perspective that I'm center of the universe is. When we view ourselves, self as a context, it's just okay, I happen to be their coworker, they would consider anybody asshole, it just happened that okay, I am the context that they're thinking about and consider asshole. It's not because I'm that person, it's not about me, it's just okay. So I happen to be this context.
Yes, it's a nice direction of thought. I think one way to kind of crystallize it is to think about the world as as a machine or as a bunch of machines. In that case, the coworkers are people who execute such an algorithm that any person they talk to is an asshole, and it's not about you because there's no variable to quantify you there. Okay, so now we come to the part, the two last principles of the six. That's the part where they kind of suggest where change can come from, and those are values and committed action. I think that what they contrast here is goals versus values. What they want to emphasize is kind of adverbs, maybe not nouns. So a value is something like I am kind. I am proud. I'm fine. And this is kind of a different way to say that than goals. So it's this isn't about in 2 years I will be senior something. Those are much more fuzzy, and this also this is a bit of a tangent, but this is something I've been reading about recently, so please excuse that. So like we have that's a wall. It's whiteboard. Okay, so we have values and goals, and values are like kind, proud, funny, and goals are like in 2 years something in physical world. And one thing you can notice when you contrast those two is that these are kind of like general, and these are very detailed. And this reminds me of I think it's called prospect theory. So there is this notion of so-called reasoning far mode and near mode, and this connects in turn with sacred and mundane. And now let me ground this down. I just dumped a bunch of terms on you. So like in this course, you can notice that some things are universal and fuzzy, like love, or like friendship, or like our proud nation. And some things are like what I ate for breakfast, or like my shopping list, or like my Jira tickets. And these two kind of things seem to elicit pretty different ways of relating to them. So these are the things you kind of plan and execute and don't care about much, and these are normally like your the miniature of your daily life. And these like love, friendship are like things which are quite a bit less defined, but due to that, they are also shared by larger groups of people. Like many people care about friendship. That might be somewhat different things for them, but this kind of abstraction is a mechanism for wide recognition or communication about the concept. And so one funky way to consider that is that so does this notion that fuzzier things are better for communication about like large groups of people, that make sense?
Larger
Could
group
you
of people.
repeat it, please?
Okay, so if you have a fuzzy concept like being kind or
General. Fuzzy means general,
yes, no, not detailed.
not detailed.
If you have this sort of concept, it's useful to coordinate large groups of people. Like you can't coordinate, I don't know, 1 million people about your shopping list or what you eat for breakfast, because like or around a recipe for preparing omelette. Because it's like a bunch of minute steps, whatever, but you can coordinate them around kind of.
Yeah, but
I
they
think
will not be agreeing on the same thing then. I mean, they'll think of it as like they produce it in their mind, but not an exact thing. They coordinate.
Yes, but
That's the point.
they will be somewhat aligned.
Yeah, I think it's like the Great Roman Empire should go like east.
Yes,
troops.
it's exactly like this.
Okay.
But like they might not actually agree, but they agree in practice. Like they do go east, right?
Well, they do go east because they believe they should go east.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though they like do not fully understand what is the Great Roman Empire.
Yeah.
How it affects their life. Okay.
And so like this is something entirely original I just came up with. But one way to view this is that ACT emphasizes values-based action instead of goals-based action, because values-based action allows you to coordinate with yourself over time, because you are many different people over time, and values allow you to connect them.
So if we lose
Well,
values,
I suspect there are both aspects to this kind of ergodic and I mean the time-based individual and like number-based coordination, because usually therapist works with several people so it's easier to to address all of them, not necessarily at the same time, but in principle if we operate with this more general, more relatable.
Yeah, you can also say that this can help build a sense of belonging as in socially, as in if you are if you think about your goal, your values, and it can help you connect with other people based on values, because values are easier to connect on.
so does this mean that if we lose our values, we get several personalities?
We lose?
Uh,
Lose on you mean?
Yeah, or at least we lose some if our values are not constant all the time.
Well, it's kind of you lose a sense of continuity.
Yeah, kind of.
Philosophical kind of question.
Mhm.
Like, what's this personality? When it's the same, when it's not the same, like ship of Theseus conundrum.
So you become a chaotic. So you become a chaotic.
Mhm.
So you're not. How to say this? So you're not constant.
Mhm.
So you just a random value, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess in everyday life, how you can see that is that some people are like, "Ooh, I was a totally different person 5 years ago,"
Mhm.
and some are like,
5 hours ago.
right. So
So, and is it some kind of illness, like losing your values or changing the values too often?
so
It is good when you facing some strange situation, because people who are always constant, they will go in one direction every time. But people who are can accept everything that's going in their life, they and the opposite, they very good at the strange situation. For example, something happening, and you quickly, for example, can understand what is happening right now. So it's a good value also to be chaotic. It's a value by itself.
Yeah, understand. Nice.
Okay.
On the other hand, there is opposite kind of side of the spectrum. Yeah, at least I know I read it. I know how well it kind of supported by evidence, but there apparently is some evidence that in the Nazi Germany, in the concentration camps, people who had like no values were this over flexible, or tried to be this super flexible and adaptable and be immoral and just survive at any cost, doing anything. They were like the first one to die out.
Really?
And survived, went through this concentration camp, the people who had some very, very strong core values, and they stick to them, and that can allow them to get through this experience, well, at least not die. You can say they are the same person that died in the camp.
I don't agree with it, actually. I will not say like that. You're saying about concentration camps and experience in them by one guy who recently
Not one.
No.
No,
okay.
there are.
Guys, I would say it's not about being constant or being flexible. In my mind, I think it's more about being consistent with your like values and the change, because like you can change one value to another with a clear understanding of how it happens. I mean, like this constant thing is rather.
Oh, are we online yet?
Just put it back. We did not touch this.
Keep it cold.
What's still working? Check the camera, check the. Is it working?
Yeah, working.
Yeah, right.
Let's continue.
The important parts are there, so let's continue.
At least we tried.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so great discussion about values. I'd say that like one simple way to view it is just to view it as a machine learning problem, right? So like if you have a low learning rate, then you can get stuck at local optima. If you have too high learning rates, then you just diverge.
You can quickly find another minimum in the system.
Right.
Kind of.
So like what I'd like you to take away from this section is that please use Adam in your personal life.
Adam?
In your brain.
It's an optimization algorithm an improvement upon SGD. Yeah. Okay.
Easy, poesia.
That's
That's a less wrong joke.
yeah. Actually, like to continue the off topic a little, I think
Oh, you erased the chart. Sorry, I will break. So, I wanted to ask actually about this chart, this tree that you draw.
Yeah.
I think it's not fully correct because from afraid there are a new kind of teaching.
What kind?
It's called some flexible or something. So they developing also their theory. So according to practice or according to something. So it's not everything is going to CBD. To cognitive
absolutely not. I didn't mean to imply that. I just wanted to say that like if we view the world, if you look at CBT sort of thing, that's where it goes, but it's not absolutely not what's the whole picture of what's happening in therapy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, but definitely everything goes back to Pavlov. That's for sure. Everything stems from Pavlov.
Oh, I mean, everything which wants to be called behavior or something from Pavlov.
Now, as I told you, we know that Freud kind of goes back to Pavlov because he was trained in the this neurophysiology. He was a neurophysiologist actually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So going back to the processes of ACT, here's the last process. It's committed action, and what it's about, it's that so we elicited your values, like the kind of person you want to be, and we talked about going through unpleasant things and particular ways to do that. And then committed action is just acting on your values, acting to become the kind of person you want to be in terms of values. So it's really just a combination of what we talked about. So like knowing your values, going through the fear by diffusion and being present, and detaching by noticing the context, and like gradually coming ever closer to your values. Okay, and here's a section which I'm going to skip almost entirely because like it's just a survey of a bunch of studies on ACT. Like here we studied like some particular questionnaire. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Could you get back to the previous section real quick? So, like summing it up, like we have I think like 4 things here, and
Yeah, maybe I'll just write it down so that we can
Yes.
refer to
Yes.
it. So we have 6 principles, and this
Processes. I think they call it
yes.
processes.
Well, yeah, that doesn't matter. Acceptance. It's called just diffusion. Then we have being present. Context. Self-context. Values and action. Okay.
Could you please press the button on off?
By the way, do they happen to have like a table or diagram where they connect these reference frames to these processes?
Great question. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, they allude to the connection between this reference frame theory and processes and other kind of papers and then they discuss that, okay, if there is a connection, but anyway, is there a mapping in the first place? How they
Okay, so
themselves
I'm not familiar where they do that, if they do that, but we can kind of do it by ourselves here. So I think that the main place for RFT is probably here, because so recall that RFT is about how we can reason in many frameworks, how we can reason like temporally in terms of social status, in terms of social relations, in terms of causality, and so on and so forth. And so recall itself as context is like this kind of observation back here, so this is where we have various lenses and where we view the same situation in different ways. So this is the natural place for RFT to come, and I think that these parts here are about kind of how to say that are about coping. So are about being able to stand and to kind of be with the situation long enough so you can try swapping in another lens, right? And the values and action are about kind of where you want to go. So I think this isn't really about RFT. This is kind of mechanisms which can let you apply RFT, kind of.
And how about this statement? So be in present. So one of the principle, one of the process is be in present.
Yes.
So maybe this is exactly the same in this picture, that be yourself without this context. No? Be in present means that so I'm right now, I'm right here. So and do I have a context?
Uh-huh.
This kind of question, or this kind of, what are you thinking about this?
I think that
Be present. What does it mean? So because somebody we have some
Or being present.
It is something from religion, I think.
No,
So, yeah, from some
meditation.
something from meditation. Yes,
Yeah.
from meditation. So being present is
Yeah, exactly. Understanding. And
yes.
Being aware of what's happening with you and around you at this particular time. Not thinking about future, not thinking about past. Kind of understanding the present moment as it is and changing with the changes.
Yeah, so I'd say like there are two parts to this. Being present, on one hand, it's present, which Sasha just talked about. On the other hand, it's being.
Okay.
And I think being is normally interpreted as contrasted to reacting. As in like, I don't know, someone looks at you weird and you like, so you react, and being is just kind of, you know, both this sort of thing. Okay. So,
So I have a question here. So we have like coping, it's like dealing with the worries. We have RFT, which is seems to be like analysis, self-analysis. Why? What's going on? And values and actions. You said it's more like about goals. But
no, I don't say that it's about goals. I say it's about where to go. So it's a sense of direction.
well, I mean, those two processes like directly where to go, but in getting back to my understanding that it as goals, which is not correct as you mentioned, then can you say it's can be unconscious process?
Yes. I don't mean to imply that they wanted to be unconscious,
Yeah.
but so if you talk to meditation practitioners, then they often claim that they don't have thoughts. And that is kind of weird because somehow they still act in the world. And what's even more weird is that they act in the world in ways which seem to be purposeful and planned, which is like very weird because normally we plan with thoughts, right? And
Two things on the. Well, do they really claim they don't have thoughts at all times? Like not while meditating, but in.
actually, at another time we can read a paper about that. I have a nice one, but yes.
Oh, really? Yes. So there are these
It's
people
weird.
that claim that have no thoughts at all times.
Never. Yes.
Okay. On the other point that usually you plan and think with thoughts. Yeah, I think obviously usually we do, though at least once in my life I did kind of thinking and planning without thoughts in the sense of these discrete, verbalized thoughts, but that was about planning actions. So physical action is your body. I was kind of just thinking in terms of these actions and kind of stacking them and kind of expecting, evaluating the results, and that's not like, I was putting that in words, it's just kind of direct understanding. I think, again, meditation practitioners refer to some direct understanding, direct access to kind of reality or something. Maybe that's what they have in mind.
How I think about that, I don't much like when they say words like direct and true understanding of reality because I don't feel it helps me much. The way I think about that is that so you might have heard the notion about system 1, system 2 by Kahneman. So like the idea is that neurologically we have kind of fast autonomous processing which works when I want to catch something, or when I don't know, or when I see someone and I want to punch them because they're an asshole and I'm angry. So like very fast sort of thing. And then I have another sort of processing, which is when I solve differential equations.
And is it like a monkey and the sailor from Max Fadeev, or how it's called? I don't remember.
I think I expect it to be similar. Yes.
Uh-huh.
So Kahneman talks called it System 1, System 2, but this idea is pretty widely spread at this point. I think he developed it in the 90s or something, so yes, it has been adapted widely. So like this is like fast, approximate chip processing, and this is analytic, slow, so on.
And can we say that this is similar to, for example, there are statements that we have three brains. So one is a new one, so it's
Okay,
neurological. So reptilian brain, and also a brain about physiological stuff or something.
Yes.
Oh, I forgot about something. So in these brains, it's working, still working right now, and even if we are logical and very developed guy, we still are reptilian actually inside. And when we go to this state, in meditation state, we somehow connecting all of the brains. And in this state, we can do something and defragmentate some change something into reptilian brain. So, and meditation is about, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, but when you sit in meditation, for example, why actually in CBD also, so how to avoid depression, for example, you need to go to walking, talk with people, and also meditation. It's a point in this behavioral. So meditation actually it's a good thing. It's not so bad. It's a useful thing, but you should use it as a tool as a tool when you know what you're trying to solve. So maybe you can sit in meditation and try to imagine everything. Actually, you can view on yourself from another point of view. You can change this context. You can change. No, you can think about anything actually. So in this state, you connecting all of your brains. You are sitting in a state when you, for example, you go into sleep or you waking up. So you connecting to this brain, and this is Freud actually saying about that. So when he saying about I have subconsciousness thoughts.
Yeah,
so maybe he says that we have another brain actually in our brain. We have another layer that we don't have access to this, and in this state you can have an access to it.
Right. I'm sorry guys, we're going a little over time, so I'd
Yes,
like
yes,
to
sorry.
kind of get this done quickly to make space for the next talk. So I'll briefly connect that and finish this paper. Yes, great point about like different like the older parts of the brain and the newer parts of the brain. Yes, this Kahneman's ideas and this mesh together somewhat. I normally talk in terms of Kahneman because it's explicitly not very well grounded neurologically, because we like there is kind of like neurologic understanding is an active area of research, while this is a useful clinical model. Okay, and yes, we were talking about how meditators claim to not have thoughts and act in the world. Indeed, like one metaphor I can use for that is like when you dance, you don't think about where you put your leg. You learn that and you just know. And this is generally the experience they talk about. Like we can view it, we can talk about it secularly. Like I know my values, like I know I'm kind, and it's just like I don't have to think about smiling to people. It's just natural. I think that's what they are up to genuinely. Okay, and I was talking about how there's a section of the paper I'd like to skip, which is a whole bunch of research. Yeah, one thing I want to highlight, here's this term which goes trichotillomania. It's propensity to pull out hair in stress. Right. And I think that yeah, let me just see how much we have. Okay, not much. Great. So we just talked about like the concept of ACT, like what the theory of change is, maybe. And now we talk a little bit about meta science. And what they complain about here is that the way that psychology apparently works is that like there's a group of researchers, they propose a protocol. A protocol gets validated. I write FDA here. I actually don't think it's FDA. It's maybe APA or something. But like validated and approved, and then put out in the wild. And after it's approved, then like you wait 10 years for everyone to learn it, and then you start getting like clinical evidence. And what they complain about here is that like if a protocol is developed not bottom up but top down, as in like Freud and Jung did from what worked for them, then it's complicated to cut it down to small pieces which you can replicate in a lab. So like if I don't know, like if you look at psychoanalytic psychotypes, like they have like some vague definition of a person who is a schizoid, or a vague definition of a person who is hysteric. And it's like, okay, great, but like how do I ground this down to a lab experiment? And to give you a notion of what a lab experiment in psychology looks like, it's like when I don't know, you make flashes on a screen and track a person's eyes and like see how a person scans the screen, like and I think the result is that, well, then there is some like local patterns, and then there is some global screen scanning pattern, or another like experiment in classic psychology is when in behavioral psychology is when you write words which are color names, but you write them in a different color, and the person like can't read the words, right? Or can't name the color. So like these are experiments which are very clear cut and very like clear how to perform them and how to replicate them. But when a person like is vaguely schizoid or vaguely hysteric, it's like not clear, and that's what they complain about here. And they also complain about this lag of like 10 years when everybody learns the protocol. And so they propose doing micro studies of all these principles and build from the bottom up on these principles. And they like indeed, kind of a feature of ACT is that they have like a shitload of studies, like thousands of studies, I think.
The
And
second paper referred to 6,500 plus studies.
mhm. Yeah,
Well, maybe over 20 years, but yeah.
but that's still it's like a lot of studies.
Still feels like shitload.
Yeah.
In technical term.
Okay, so a bunch of studies I'm skipping. One thing I wanted to highlight here is that apparently mass anxiety is like a term. As like there's a Wikipedia article about mass anxiety and there is a bunch of papers about mass anxiety. So you are not alone.
No, actually, that kind of feels wrong because I don't have that. I kind of have math affection, I guess.
Right. Okay, and okay, I think we'll finish in like 5 minutes or so. Sorry for going over time. Another meta-scientific bit here is that another thing they complain about is that like psychologists very much like self-reported stuff because it's hard to do other stuff basically. So the state of science in psychology largely is to ask a person how they feel because neuroscience isn't there. But the thing is, when you ask a person something, you can there's actually like a whole field about how to ask the right things. It's called psychometry, and as we talked about at another time, they actually have some useful results. When I say useful results, I mean results which predict behaviors and are stable-ish over time. As in when you ask a person this and then we ask them in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or like months, it's stable.
2 weeks or months.
Or a few months. Well, I mean. Okay, and like what they complain about is that basically many studies which are performed are not very good psychometrically, and this so recall that this is a 2006 paper by proponents of ACT, so like by major developers of ACT, and the 2023 paper, which is a criticism of ACT, like gets back to that with a vengeance. So like basically that says that a large portion of your 6,500 studies use like bullshit metrics, and yeah, that's one point.
Well, yeah, we can. I think I can summarize that 23 paper. This 23 paper that they basically complain that empirical research in psychology is freaking hard, and that's the problem, and that's kind of why we can't really say that ACT in particular is empirically validated or supported because like it's freaking hard and completely unclear what exactly is empirically studied and supported.
Okay, so like the way I frame that, so like this paper ends with saying that what they're doing here is like building a new research agenda, research paradigm in psychology, where they want to build from small studies of their core principles, and this is how they will be different from previous generation, which kind of was touched with the lab, which only worked with like clinically useful, clinically developed things. And as we just spent 2 hours on our first paper, we don't have the time today to walk over the 2 other papers. Maybe we'll do that another time. But the gist, I'd say, is that the whole discussion is about how good this research paradigm is, and how indeed useful the metrics they developed and the methods they developed are. I guess you could say that one side argues for basically for more for more rigor, so for more for better math, for better empiricism, for better lab work, and the other side says come on guys, we did something. And also the first side calls the second side greedy businessmen who are only in it for the money and status, and the second side calls the first side Nazis. Alright, yeah, so that's a teaser for the next seminar, maybe, on ACT. Are there any questions I should quickly address here?
So
okay, I have I don't know, question or notice about the previous highlight. Concerning self-reports, I think that's again one of the major huge points of disagreement between hardcore behaviorists and the rest of the world. Behaviorists, I think, completely disregard this stuff like self-reports and any reports and anything regarding this internal state of mind and stuff like that. They say that, at least, I think more radical behaviorists pretty much say that these bullshit internal states do not exist really, and only behavior exists. At any rate, behaviorists say that let's measure and
I think they're basically saying we need instruments.
Hard stuff that actually visible, objective, stuff like that, and these reports and internal states,
So
which are invisible and observable.
are following behavioral therapy because they doing anything to get some result, some behavior.
Well, it's complicated. I'd say that they are actually following the pragmatic approach,
Yes.
because they don't care about lab work. So they are in a sense more third wave than second wave.
It was a joke, by the way.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay, so thanks to everyone for the discussion.
Thank you.